What's up, everyone, and welcome back to First and 15 Fantasy Football Podcast. This is going to be another episode looking into the injury outlook of the AFC West. Some key changes happening to these teams, some key acquisitions happening around these teams themselves that are going to change the outlook of their performance. We're going to deeply dive into it, but before that, make sure that you give us a like, comment, share, or even subscribe so that we can continue to give you the best information, most effective strategies for your upcoming draft and your season. What's up, everyone? I couldn't even be more excited to be talking about these AFC West teams. We're going to be diving deep into some of the injuries that plagued them last year that affected their overall performance and their overall fantasy production. We're going to be looking at deep dive into the Broncos, the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Chiefs. Some key acquisitions, some key trades, and then also some key pieces in the offense and the personnel when it comes to the coaches that are ultimately going to influence their fantasy production. We're going to deep dive into these insights. Without further ado, let's get into it. The Denver Broncos ended up the overall season with a 7-10 record. Ultimately, I think plagued by injuries and some quarterback play that influenced the ultimate production of that team. Again, Jerry Jeudy suffered some significant injuries, KJ Hamler as well. You saw the immersion of Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon extending his contract through the offseason. And so we're going to get deep into these insights and how they're going to be affecting their season coming up. The Denver running backs are going to be exciting this year. If you didn't see the true immersion of Javonte Williams last year, you're definitely going to see a full case workload this year. Right now, he is going in your redraft leagues about 15th overall. In your best ball FFPC leagues, he's going between second and third round. I've seen him as high as the mid-second round, going as close as between Aaron Jones and Saquon Barkley, and he's getting very close to there. I wouldn't necessarily determine whether I'd take him over them. However, Javonte Williams is getting a lot of buzz, and his ADP continues to rise. He was able to stay relatively healthy last year. He did not miss any games. And so as a rookie NFL player, that's ultimately what we want to see. They stay relatively healthy and remain offensive production throughout the season. So again, he didn't have any significant injuries, which allowed him to rush for 203 attempts at 903 yards, adding 43 receptions at 316 yards. He had 4 rush TDs and 3 reception TDs. And so we're going to be looking to see if that offensive production continues to increase. And perhaps we're going to see now over 1,000 yards in rushing. And then his TDs continues to increase. And you're going to see that in your overall fantasy production. Melvin Gordon, he resigned in the offseason. They gave him an extra tender, more incentive base. He did miss one game out of the season due to a hip injury in week 6, but was able to stay relatively healthy throughout the season and finish the season off. He added, 203 rushes as well at 918 yards. So you see that 50-50 split between him and Javonte Williams last year. But I think you're going to see more of a 60-40 this coming season with Javonte Williams emerging as that lead back. Melvin Gordon added 28 receptions at 213 yards, adding 8 rush TDs and 2 receiving TDs. We're going to be looking at Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon continue to that be about 1-2 punch, and we're going to see how these new coaches utilize them throughout the season. And now let's get into the wide receivers of the Broncos. I'd like to get into is Jerry Jeudy. And Jerry Jeudy did suffer a high ankle sprain last year. He suffered in the week 1, and unfortunately he had to miss 6 games because of it. We did a video last year to analyze his ankle sprain, and we did anticipate that he would miss 6 to 8 weeks because of that high ankle sprain, and he did miss 6 games. And so, it's very important to continue to update yourself on some of these conditions, specifically like language such as high ankle sprain, because then you'll know specifically how long that person will be out. Each condition and each injury is unique, but we're going to try and give you the best prognosis so you can make real-time adjustments to your roster itself during the season itself. But Jerry Jeudy did suffer a ankle sprain, and it ate into his fantasy production. You'll see it again in his in his ADP. His ADP right now is around 20 to 25. It's then around with Cortland Sutton. There is a viable debate who's going to be wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. Is it a wide 1A, 1B? I believe that Jerry Jeudy will probably make more receptions throughout the season, but I think Cortland Sutton has a big play ability, specifically kind of very similar to a DK Metcalf. He's going to have that over the top where Jerry Jeudy is just that intermediary, getting open, and also making everybody miss and getting some yak as well. And so Jerry Jeudy added 38 receptions, again only because of that ankle sprain. He did finish the season off relatively healthy, and so that was a really good sign. He did not any reception TDs at all last season. But again, we're going to see if he's going to be able to double his offensive production from last year, and then also eat into those reception TDs, and then continue to increase in his fantasy for production overall. Cortland Sutton is your next Broncos wide receiver. That could very well be your wide receiver 1 for this team. Last year he was able to stay relatively healthy. He did not miss any games last year. That is very significant and very fruitful on his part because the previous season he did suffer an ACL and MCL tear. He did not have any setbacks this past season, and so we're looking to see that he continues to have a breakout season this coming year. This is going to be, a breakout season for Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. You're going to make a viable case for either one being 1A and 1B. Cortland Sutton, right now in redraft leagues, he's going about 21 overall, depending on your ranking system. Again, riding around where Jerry Jeudy is going as well. They continue to rise as well as I continue to see some of these FFPC best ball leagues. And the more you hear about the camp of the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson's athletic ability. Cortland Sutton added 58 receptions at 776 yards. I can very well see that go to 70 receptions, 75 receptions, and then closer to 1,000 yards receiving. He did added 2 reception TDs last year. That can very well go to 5 to 7 this year. Again, that is going to increase his fantasy production, and I continue to see that Cortland Sutton continues to emerge and has a breakout season this coming season. The other individual I want to talk about is KJ Hamler. If you haven't already looked at his video on why he's chosen to play the game of football and come back from this injury itself, it's definitely worth a watch. It is something to be said about these individuals. There's nothing fantasy about injuries when it comes to fantasy football and these individuals playing this game. And KJ Hamler had a significant injury last year. He was going up for the ball in week 3. And when he came down from the ball, his leg got caught in the air as he was coming down, and when he doubled over, his actual hip went into, we call it a hip subluxation, and actually popped out of place and come back into position. When that happened, he actually had an ACL tear happen at the same exact time on that leg, and so they actually had to take a graft out of his opposite leg to put into that ACL to repair that ACL. Now, that ACL is a second-time ACL tear. He did tear it in high school as well. And so KJ Hamler is going to, have an uphill battle coming back from these 2 significant injuries. When they were said and done, he had an ACL repair and a hip repair. The hip repair doesn't state specifically what it was, whether a leg repair, but there was weight-bearing precautions that did not allow him to fully participate in any type of activities due to the rehabilitation protocol. So that in itself, he goes on to say that, quote, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, supposed to be only 1. Again, he had a hip dislocation or subluxation where the hip popped out and popped back in. He had a combo repair between his ACLR or his ACL and his hip. And so, with those 2 conditions, we're going to see that I expect that his return to play is going to be particularly on the PUP list first. And as he makes more production throughout the season or more progress throughout, practice, then they're going to start to see if he is now ready to play. But I anticipate they bring him on as on the PUP list and then bring him into the season progressively as well. He did miss 14 games because of this injury. But again, we're looking to see that he does have a good bounce back season, does not have any setbacks, and adds to this offensive production. The other key wide receivers for the Denver Broncos was Tim Patrick and also Kendall Hinton. And so Tim Patrick, was made a very well case for being the number one wide receiver last year, staying relatively healthy and played in all 17 games last year. He added 53 receptions to 734 yards and 5 reception TDs. Kendall Hinton also relatively healthy throughout the season. Did not miss any games. He only actually missed one game due to healthy scratch, but no injuries whatsoever. He added 15 receptions, 175 yards, 1 reception TD. Again, Tim Patrick, I believe, is going to continue to evolve with Courtland Sutton and also Jerry Jeudy. He's going to be within the mix, and you're going to continue to see that offensive production continues to increase, specifically for Tim Patrick himself. Tim Patrick is going about 65 overall in your redraft leagues, and we're going to see if he continues to rise as Russell Wilson continues to rise as well. Noah Fant, he's in your redraft leagues. He's your tight end overall 19. He also was able to stay relatively healthy last year. We're going to look to see that he continues to make an offensive viable production this coming season, specifically with Russell Wilson. He did not have any significant injuries last season. He added 68 receptions at 670 yards and added 4 reception TDs. Again, with the addition with this new offensive weapons, again with the new offensive scheme, we're going to see if Noah Fant continues to be another key addition and role in this offensive production. But those are your key acquisitions. Some of the other individuals that you're going to have is Travis Fulgham coming over from the Eagles to be in addition to the wide receiver core. Again, you're going to see that there's already a healthy group of wide receivers, and we're going to see over the training camp and preseason to see who actually stays on the roster themselves. But I think that you're going to have, Russell Wilson, key acquisition. You have Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick. You have Javonte Williams. You have Melvin Gordon, and Noah Fant. These 6 individuals are going to be upticking their offensive production from last year, and you're going to see almost a double in production, I think, from some of these key players. So continue to be overlooking some of these Broncos as the season goes on. But that is it for your Denver Broncos. Make sure you stay up to date. We're going to continue to give you live updates as the season progresses. The NFL changes every single day. Let us know what you think. Do you think that the Broncos are going to have offensive production? Who's going to be your wide receiver 1 coming out of that spot? Is it Sutton? Do you think it's Jeudy? And how does it play into your overall draft league? Love to hear your thoughts. Again, this is Carlos. Make sure that you follow us on Twitter. This is First and 15. We'll catch you next time.